That's here.
Okay, we're recording.
Oh, it's an excellent coffee, by the
We're
way.
ready? Okay.
Most
So
enjoyable.
we are welcoming to the DASNY March 11th full board meeting, which follows the Finance Committee. Sarah, will you let us know who is here? I know that in the city, as far as board members, we have Mr. President, Mr. Vice Chair, and me. As well as
Yes, so
Karen.
in addition to you and Jerry in New York, we have Janice McKinney joining from Buffalo. Here in Albany, we have Ken Evans, Christina Copeland, and Liz Velez. And via Teams, Al Carney is joining us. Absent today are Kent Severud, Joan Sullivan, Adrian Swazerski, and Beryl Snyder. So we have 6 as needed for the quorum.
Okay, great.
I
So
should have negotiated a higher rate for my appearance.
yeah. Behind tab 1 are the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes unless anybody has thoughts and
Sure.
questions? Thank you, Jerry. Could I have a second, please, from
Second.
Liz? I think I see. Okay, great. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Any abstaining? No. Motion carries. On to tab 2, the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We met a short time ago. We adopted the meeting minutes from the February 11th meeting of Finance. We advanced and we had no comments or suggested changes to the finance charter. We then advanced to discuss the school bond revenue program offering, which we recommend be approved at today's board meeting. We also then advanced on the Vaughan Aeronautics, and after some discussion back and forth on that, we also recommend that that be approved at today's board meeting. Unless anyone has any questions or concerns, that concludes my report, Madam Chair, and thank you for my call.
You are most welcome. A bet is a bet. Behind tab 3 is the aforementioned school district's revenue bond financing program. That is a single approval transaction. And presenting that will be Dave Ostrander and Melissa Bennett from Barclay Damon and Bob Drillings from Berger Gray.
Thank you. The board is being asked to adopt the necessary documents to authorize multiple series of school district revenue bond financing program bonds at an amount not to exceed 1.5 billion to be sold through multiple negotiated offerings. Proceeds from this authorization may be used to refinance the bond anticipation notes of various New York State school districts, to finance new money projects on behalf of those districts, and to refund bonds previously issued by DASNY through the school district's revenue bond financing program. The school district bonds will be secured by semi-annual payments to be made pursuant to financing agreements backed by the full faith and credit general obligation bonds of the participating school districts, as well as a statutory intercept through the state comptroller of any state aid due to the participating districts for debt service on the bonds. The expected ratings for the school district bonds are AA3, A+, and AA-. Unless there's any questions, I'll turn it over to Melissa and Robert to discuss the bond documents.
Great. Thanks, Dave, and good morning, Madam Chair, DASNY board members, and DASNY staff. It's a pleasure to be before you again this morning for this program. As noted, before the board for consideration is the adoption of the 2026 supplemental resolution pursuant to the amended and restated resolution in order to provide financing to school districts for school construction projects that are eligible for building aid and approved by the Commissioner of Education. The master resolution provides for the issuance from time to time of multiple series of bonds in an unlimited principal amount, and since first adopted, multiple series and supplemental resolutions have been adopted pursuant to it. Each series under the master resolution are special obligations of DASNY, payable solely out of the revenues, which consist generally of the payments to be made by the school districts on their bonds issued to DASNY, and payments to be made by the state comptroller to DASNY out of state funds otherwise payable to a particular school district if that district has not made a payment on its bonds issued to DASNY. Each series of bonds issued under the master resolution is secured separately from all other series. As Dave mentioned, the 2026 supplemental resolution authorizes up to an additional $1.5 billion of bonds as and when needed to satisfy the needs of the participating school districts, and it also authorizes customary documents for a negotiated public offering of bonds. While credit enhancement is not required, municipal bond insurance historically has been cost-effective for certain bonds and may be utilized for certain bonds this year. I'll now turn the presentation over to Robert to discuss the financing agreements.
Thank you, Melissa. As with prior series of school district revenue bonds issued to finance or refinance projects for school districts, each school district will enter into a financing agreement with DASNY with the approval of the Commissioner of Education. Under the financing agreements, the school districts are obligated to make payments to DASNY in an amount sufficient to cover principal and interest on the applicable series of bonds when due, regardless of whether the school district received state aid payments. In addition, each school district will issue bonds to DASNY backed by the full faith and credit pledge of the school district, which requires the school district to levy taxes in amounts sufficient to enable the school district to pay their bonds, securing its obligations under the financing agreement. The school district's obligations to make payments under the financing agreements and other amounts to DASNY under the financing agreements will be supported by the statutory intercept mechanism of the program. Neither the DASNY bonds nor the school district's obligations under the financing agreements are secured by a lien on any facilities of the school districts or any other property and may not be accelerated as a remedy for default. The projects to be financed or refinanced with the proceeds of the school district revenue bonds will be identified in each financing agreement and, prior to the issuance of the school district revenue bonds, will have each been approved by the voters of the school district and by the Commissioner of Education. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding the school district bond program and this particular issuance.
Thank you, guys. Albany, Buffalo, New York, any questions?
No, Madam Chair, that it's just confirmed that before any of these bonds are issued, whether they're done independently or through DASNY, that the voters in this particular school district, they must approve the bond
Bond
before it's. So, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, hearing no questions, may I have a motion to approve?
Sure.
Thank you, Jerry. Second, please.
Second.
Al. Thank you, Al. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? No, motion carries. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Tab 4 is Vaughn College of Aeronautics and Technology, also a single approval transaction. Alex Sardine and co-bond counsel Neil Kaplan of Hawkins and Barry D. Lights of the Office of Barry D. Lights, LLP, will present the transaction.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning. The board is being asked to adopt the necessary documents for the financing of one or more series of tax-exempt and/or taxable fixed and/or variable rate bonds with a maturity not to exceed 30 years in the amount not to exceed $45 million on behalf of Vaughn College of Aeronautics and Technology. Proceeds from the Series 2026 bonds are expected to be used to, 1, refund a portion of all or a portion of the college's DASNY Series 2016A bonds, 2, refinance all or a portion of a taxable bank loan, and 3, to finance various capital improvement projects at the college. The Series 2026 bonds will be sold through a private placement to Nuveen Asset Management, LLC. This transaction enables the college to restructure its existing debt. The college has worked closely with Nuveen, which currently holds over 90% of the outstanding Series 2016A bonds and will be the sole bondholder of the Series 2026 bonds to negotiate new terms. In addition to new financial covenants, the proposed transaction is structured to pay interest only for the first 4 years, with a 4-year extension of the final maturity from 2046 to 2050, which is expected to generate approximately $6.9 million in cash flow savings over the first 11 years compared to the existing amortization schedule. The proposed issuance will allow the college to restructure its existing debt, generating near-term cash flow relief and support modest capital improvements as the college continues to stabilize its finances. The bonds are expected to be secured by a pledge of revenues, a mortgage, and a debt service reserve fund. The full details of this transaction were provided to members a few moment ago during the Finance Committee. And unless there are any questions, I will turn the presentation over to Neil Kaplan and Barry Lights to provide an overview of the documents.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. Before you for consideration is the adoption of a general resolution authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance and refinance facilities for Vaughn College of Aeronautics and Technology, and a series resolution authorizing an aggregate principal amount of $45 million of DASNY's bonds, of DASNY's Vaughn College of Aeronautics and Technology revenue bonds, which may be issued in one or more series. The authorized bonds are proposed to be issued both to refund the authority's 2016 A bonds, refinance a commercial loan from Valley National Bank that financed facilities on the institution's main campus, as well as to pay costs of renovating and equipping existing facilities on the institution's main campus. The bonds will also be used to fund a debt service reserve fund, as we mentioned, as security for the 2026 bonds and to pay costs of issuance of the 2026 bonds. The refunded bonds, the 2016 bonds, were issued to finance various facilities for the institution. The outstanding 2016 bonds are not currently callable. However, the institution has advised the authority that it has received verbal assurances from each owner of the Series 2016 bonds that it will deliver a consent to the trustee for those bonds that will enable the Series 2016 bonds to be early redeemed and therefore current refunded as required by federal income tax law. It's expected that the authorized bonds will be purchased by Nuveen Asset Management LLC or an affiliate thereof, which is a qualified institutional buyer under Section 144A of the Securities Act of 1933. And it's expected that the 2026 bonds will be purchased pursuant to a bond placement agreement among the authority, the institution, Nuveen, and DA Davidson as placement agent. At this point, I'd like to turn the presentation over to my colleague, Barry Lights. The law offices of Barry Lights will describe the documents.
Can I just ask you one question? You keep on saying expected. Who else is buying this besides Naveen?
Nuveen is the only purchaser of these bonds, but it will be placed pursuant to a placement agreement. There are multiple owners of the existing bonds. Nuveen owns about 90% of the existing bonds and will need written consents from each of those owners in order to currently refund the bonds.
When you say expected, you expect the transaction. There's a remote possibility it doesn't proceed because they don't get the okays, but it'd still be Nuveen at the end of the day if it proceeds.
That's
Right.
correct. That's right.
Philly.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you very much for that.
Good morning.
Barry, it's Al Carney. First of all, it's great to see you on the roster here. Thank you very much for the work that you're doing for DASNY. Let's hear it.
Thank you, Al. It's good to be seen. The general resolution is a new resolution based on the authority's model resolution, and the authorized bonds will be the first bonds issued under the general resolution. The general resolution constitutes the agreement between the authority and the holders of the bonds issued under it and contains the basic terms of that agreement. The general resolution provides for the issuance from time to time of multiple series of bonds, each series separately secured from each other. The authorized bonds are special obligations of the authority payable solely out of the revenues, which consist of the payments made by the authority under the loan agreement. Payment of the authorized bonds is secured by the pledge and assignment made by the general resolution of the revenues and the funds and accounts established by the series resolution, and any other security as may be required by Nuveen. The series resolution authorizes the issuance of up to $45 million of authorized bonds. The current expectation is that the authorized bonds will be issued as tax-exempt, fixed-rate bonds. The series resolution delegates to various officers of the authority to make the determinations described in our letter and to do all things necessary or convenient in connection with the sale and issuance of the bonds. In accordance with the authority's financing guidelines for independent institutions, the series resolution prescribes restrictions on the ownership and transfer of the authorized bonds purchased in a private placement by requiring, among other things, that ownership and transfers of the bonds or beneficial interest therein be restricted to qualified institutional buyers. DASNY and the institution will execute a loan agreement in connection with the issuance of the authorized bonds, which will require the institution to make timely payment of debt service on the authorized bonds. The institution's obligations to make payments under the loan agreement will be a general obligation. To secure its obligations under the loan agreement, the institute will grant a security interest in its gross revenues, and the institution's obligations will be further secured by one or more mortgages of certain parcels of property comprising its campus. Additional security for the institution's obligations under the loan agreement and financial covenants of the institution will be determined by Nuveen and the institution consistent with the authority's financing guidelines. This concludes our presentation, and we are happy to address any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jerry, you have any comments on the conversation at Finance Committee or?
No, we commented that it was a private placement and that it was also really Naveen's workout with Vaughn, and that Vaughn actually has continued to grow its enrollment, which is a good thing.
We support our
Yes,
traffic
we support
controller
our air
training.
traffic controllers. So we recommended that it be approved. Al had a question after, and I just looked it up, Al. It looks like the annual tuition is about 29,000 a year, and all in it's about like 52, according to what AI just told me on a 5 second.
And how does that compare, Jerry, this past year to you? You don't know. You did.
I don't know. That I haven't done that much of it. I just got you this year.
Thank
I
you.
don't know what I'm.
Thanks for letting me know.
I'm sure ChatGPT can tell you.
Yes, so they told me that. So.
Okay.
ChatGPT is probably where he got it.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Very quickly, by the way, I might add.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions? Hearing and seeing none, could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Liz and Al, in whichever order.
You choose.
I don't know, it was a close tie. Great, all in favor?
Video tape.
Any opposed?
None.
Any abstentions?
None.
Great, carries, fantastic, okay. Turning it over to the action pack, tab 5, report of the president.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So moving to the President's report, we'll begin with public finance. Last month, I delivered the keynote address at the Bond Buyer National Outlook Conference, an annual conference for municipal finance leaders. I thank Portia for assisting and attending. The theme of those remarks were volatility and resiliency in the market, and certainly
Is that before or after the war started?
this is before. So true
war?
to those comments, we continue to see that in terms of our finance activities. And just to speak a little bit about the finance activities, DASNY continues to execute on behalf of our public and private clients. Last month, DASNY closed on a $37.3 million transaction for BOCES, for the Broome, Tioga, and Delaware counties, to finance renovations and upgrades at their Glenwood campus in Binghamton. Additionally, DASNY closed approximately $35.4 million in a TELP financing for SUNY Upstate Medical University for critical medical equipment. These transactions show our ongoing commitment to delivering affordable financing solutions for institutions across New York State. We were also in the market this week with our New York State PIT transaction for $1.6 billion. It was certainly a challenging market with activities in the war and the sweeps in oil prices. So we were certainly pricing in a challenging market. Ramirez is the lead underwriter on that transaction, and it's noteworthy that they are leading the transaction. We haven't had an MWBE lead a transaction in a considerable amount of time, and they did a terrific job in terms of navigating the market, achieving enough subscription to allow us to upsize that transaction to $2 billion to address some of the Build America bonds that we wanted to take out. So we added $400 million, and we're still able to adjust yields lower in certain areas of the curve where we had significant demand. So
So priced okay at the end.
it priced well considering the market, and certainly in line with levels, and certainly with enough demand to allow us to do a slightly bigger deal. So that deal will close weekend, and I'll allow Portia in her report to get into the more pertinent details. But those financing activities continue. On the construction side, I spoke with the American Council of Engineering Companies Winter Conference in Albany. I want to thank the construction team for their role. And it's really an important place to discuss infrastructure investment and the critical role that our engineering firms and partners play in delivering our public projects across the state. So we focused our discussion with this audience on the Wadsworth Center and the work that's happening there in Albany. It's truly our landmark project.
Is that at the Egg, or that was like at one of the conference centers or something?
It was at the conference center. I think we did that. Yep. I think they were at the conference center. And so moving on to Hunter College, you'll see in Steve's report some photos of one of the projects that they're completing the playground, but we met with President Cantor and spoke through the various essential projects that they have across the campus, and our partnership with CUNY to deliver a variety of different improvements that they need, and certainly an example of a strong partnership where significant work is happening, and significant work is still needed over the next few years to get them where they need to go. In terms of our grants portfolio, we were able to complete two grant recipients to two press events with our folks in the Southern Tier. The Economic Opportunity Program in Elmira is working on a renovation of the Ernie Banks Community Center. And
From Elmira?
yes, he was.
Really?
Yes, he was. The Heisman Trophy is there. They're very proud of it. Along with another recipient in Ithaca, as well as the YMCA, the West Family YMCA in Johnson City. These grants represented $10 million in funding going to the Southern Tier community centers and public spaces that serve residents across the region. Great events for not just our community, but the community of New Yorkers to see how the BRICS program is really impacting the lives of New Yorkers all across the state, including in the Southern Tier. In terms of engagement, we recognize a number of important events in the calendar. We recognize Lunar New Year, where we had a robust conversation. I want to thank our former board member, Wellington, for coming in and participating as part of that presentation. And yes, he's doing well. And I'll give him an opportunity to remind people about the parade that was happening shortly after our event. And then just yesterday, we celebrated Black History Month with our Lunch and Learn with the Schomburg Center in Harlem. It's a client that we are very proud of. We have performed construction-related activities with them over time. They have been a grantee for DASNY grants for a significant amount of time, and their importance and impact to the Harlem community and the greater wider New York State fabric was certainly felt here in DASNY, and it was a great opportunity for the staff to see how we are touching the lives of New Yorkers and participating in the growth of this institution through various DASNY functions and activities. So very, very exciting, in addition to other activities that we've performed for that we've attended for Black History Month with the Department of Civil Service as well. So a very busy month. And then in terms on the volunteer front, I want to recognize DASNY staff who continue to volunteer at the South End Children's Cafe, an organization that provides support to children and families in the capital region. So the rest of this report in terms of media coverage, our seeker reports and monthly grant reports are for your information. That concludes that portion of the president's report.
Okay, do you want to give an overview then of the budget or?
Sure. Well, with respect to the adoption of the budget, I'm going to turn over this portion to Kim Ellis to present the adoption of the 2026-27 operating budget and fee structure resolutions.
Thank you, Robert. Included in your book are updated materials reflecting a 26-27 revised proposed operating budget of $135,763,820. As noted in the memo, the updated materials reflect minor revisions to projected results for the current year and the proposed budget presented at the January meeting based on updated information. These changes included a decrease to salaries to reflect changes to assumptions regarding attrition and new hires, an increase to health insurance and dental and optical based on updated projections, and Social Security decrease as a result of the decrease to the salaries budget. Maintenance and operations increase based on updated projections for rent and utilities related to the New York City lease, office supplies and miscellaneous expense, and computer services and equipment. Revenue projections were updated slightly based on projected results for the current year, resulting in a slight decrease in the projected surplus for 25-26 and a slight increase in the projected surplus for 2026-27. Unless there's any specific questions. Again, I have two resolutions that the board will need to adopt.
Yeah, was the sort of computer line, sorry if I missed this, was that sort of driven by the sort of systems implementation that's been protracted?
No, when we do the system implementation, we actually budget that out of the reserve fund. So it doesn't directly hit our operating budget because that allows us to depreciate it over the life of the system.
Got it.
It's just time on the computer line. It's just timing of when things are implemented and purchases that are made. Yeah. If no other questions, for consideration is a resolution to adopt the 2026-27 budget as presented. It anticipates 535 FTEs. And again, the budget is for an amount of $35,763,820.
Great.
I move adoption.
Fantastic. Thank you. Al, could I have a second? Janice, you've been quiet. Calling on you.
Second.
Just want you to be part of the team. Okay. What's her birthday? I'm so sorry. Happy birthday, Janice.
Oh, good. Thank you, Lisa.
I would not have picked on you on your birthday. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Any abstention? No. Motion carries. Do you want to tee up the fee structure, or is Kim going to do that?
Yeah, I'll do that. The next resolution is just to adopt the fee structure included in the board materials. There's been no changes from last year's structure, so we just need it approved.
Great. Thank you. If
So
there are no
moved.
questions, thank you, Al. Thank you, Jerry. All in favor? Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? No. Any abstentions? No. Fantastic. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, President Rodriguez, will you talk about the MWBE Surety Bond Capital Access Assistant Fund?
Sure. So looking at these two resolutions, it's really, we're prepared to act, but we certainly want to create an opportunity for a discussion with the board on our MWBE program. As many of you know, we certainly celebrate our robust participation and typically are able to achieve levels of beyond 30 to 35%, and in recent history in the closer to 35%.
We also use professionals, which many other agencies and municipalities don't really include in their calculations. I mean,
Absolutely. So we're looking to build upon our history and legacy of leadership in terms of MWBE participation. As you've heard and witnessed earlier, you see the professional services in terms of our bond counsel, as I mentioned, in terms of underwriter participation, another important area for us to focus. But when we look at the future, we recognize that there have been changes in terms of more recent legislation directed that at DASNY and other authorities to create programs to allow for additional participation. And really, these two resolutions begin to address some of those areas and opportunities for us to meet the objectives of existing legislation and some of the objectives around increasing participation in certain areas. So with that, I'll jump into the two resolutions. The items on the agenda presented to the board for consideration is first the resolution to dissolve the MWBE Surety Bond Capital Access Assistance Fund. And the second is to move those funds, to transfer them to the balance of the fund to a new Mentor Protege Reserve Fund. Now, the Surety Bond Capital Access Assistance Fund was authorized at the June 24th, 2009 board meeting. And $3 million was held in escrow for the purpose of supporting a program that would facilitate access to surety bonds and capital funding. The plan at the time was to address the lack of bonding capacity for MWBE firms, putting $2 million of the reserve fund intended specifically to be used as a guarantee for MWBE firms to mitigate the risk to sureties from issuance of performance bonds and payment bond to MWBE firms.
It was a good attempt at the time, Robert. But it's probably underfunded at the end of the day because it really didn't get where.
Well, it was also undersubscribed.
Yes, so to that point, the funds were not used for that purpose. And similarly, the $1 million of the reserve funds that were set aside for the purpose of creating access to capital, the intent to partner with banks to lower the costs associated with obtaining a line of credit also remained undersubscribed and not utilized. So the expenditures for the original 3.1, so there were no expenditures for the original $3 million reserve fund, and $155,000 of interest earned in those funds was provided to the New York State Department of Economic Development, ESD, to support a pilot program to streamline the NWBE certification process.
Well, that's a good use.
That's a good use, but it didn't work.
To address some of the issues there. So today, we're turning a new leaf, and
well, a lot of things also came up, like the bond in terms of the ESD bonding program and other sorts of access.
Critically important is when that began in 2009, there was also a partnership and a collaboration with ESD, and then ESD launched their surety program in 2011. So also
it's tough. Those surety programs are tough because the sureties are the sureties, and
so
I remember the whole dialogue. I think it was at the time
I told you Jerry and Liz were going to have thoughts and feelings.
We know this, and
so I did too.
And it's important for us to take that into consideration. So we'll show you what we've come to so far in terms of thinking about those issues around surety and access to capital, recognizing that direct investments are not necessarily the way for us to approach the use of our resources. So we've conceived a new program that's called the Prime Pathways Program, focused on supporting small businesses and MWBEs to increase the capacity of these firms to compete in the market and to participate successfully in state procurements. And the request before you is, of course, to move those funds to the surety bond assistance funds from that fund to the new reserve. So to get into the program.
Robert, tell us about the program.
Yes, but before we get into the program, I want to backstop that with the legal and legislative necessity for us to move in that direction. The state law finance includes a mandate to all state agencies and authorities with more than $10 million in service and construction contracts to establish a mentor protege program for small businesses and MWBE firms to enhance their capabilities and create the source of reliable contractors. So the law specifies that mentors can provide training on everything from general business management, financial management, bond assistance, subcontracts, and joint venture arrangements. So our program, Prime Pathways, will leverage this existing statutory authority as well as DASNY pilot program legislation, as well as the mentor protege state finance law 147, and utilize our recently acquired Infrastructure Investment Act abilities to further promote equality of economic opportunities for MWB and small contractors. So we'll do this by mitigating barriers to participation to New York State contracting and expanding the MWBE capacity. So Prime Pathways will first identify and develop predetermined contract opportunities based on industry demand, project size, waiver trends, and MWBE growth potential to expand real contracting opportunities. And then the Prime Pathways will position MWBEs to competitively bid on DASNY contracts for which they may not have had the previous experience. And the objective of the Mentor Protege program is to strengthen the protege's ability to gain construction administrative knowledge necessary to perform on public works while developing the business relationships with participating mentors.
The SCA had a pretty decent mentorship program years ago. I don't know if it's still functioning.
They do, and we'll speak a little bit about those programs and how we've modeled ours around some of their best case successes. So just to highlight that some of the procurement elements which we feel are specifically important to our program, our success, is really developing the qualifications of both mentors and proteges to be able to, as part of the procurement for specific projects, really be able to participate and have certain parts that are set aside for them. So just to speak about kind of where we see things going, and I will be turning it over to Carrie to get into a little bit more depth, and Carrie, who is our director of the Opportunities Program, to speak about that. But more importantly, our next steps would certainly be developing the qualifications of both the mentors and the proteges to establish the correct milestones and deliverables that we need to be able to measure progress, and also to create a framework for including the Mentor Protege project program in procurement processes and identifying the types of projects where a mentorship is appropriate. So it's certainly our expectation that, based on the feedback of the board, we would, certainly provide an update with what this framework looks like.
You just have to work in conjunction with your legal counsel, because that environment continues to sort of evolve on the federal level, probably in my opinion, the wrong direction, but nonetheless, a certain direction. So you got to be cognizant of the legal impacts of.
Yes, which is why it was so important for us to make sure that this program was seated in state law in three different ways that are specific to us and our activities. So we're certainly, at that point where the procurement component is critically important, but additionally, there's the educational and training component, which we recognize is something that we want to continue to be able to offer our small and MWBE firms. And the way that we would do that a little bit differently is develop the curriculum for small businesses and plan to offer training sessions that can be accessed digitally stored, made available a little bit more on demand to meet the challenges and the feedback of the existing market. So I think that's a little bit broad, but let's take an opportunity to turn it over to Carrie
Could you also just briefly talk about like how we actually review and approve in our processes to ensure that that process is quicker than others, right?
We're talking about the certification.
Yeah,
process?
certification.
We don't handle
No, we
it.
don't
That's
touch that at
all
all.
ESD, and that's a
Oh, you
whole
can't certify?
other.
Well, we
situation.
never have it. The ESD is responsible for
Right,
the
the whole
certification
state.
process.
It's a whole situation.
So that we cannot conquer in our program.
Or
But
any is best,
But it should be addressed. I mean.
it should be.
So if I could just interject 1 minute, because I am currently working on a project where we assist businesses to become certified. The state has improved tremendously. We have gotten people through application process And again, we're not responsible for them getting certified, but there has been sometimes less than a 90-day turnaround. So if the applicant has everything in order, which sometimes is the challenge and the hurdle, because there's three major things: business bank account, 3 years of tax returns, and invoices and contracts that show that you're really doing business. If those three things are not at the table, they can't even begin to submit an application. So I know we in the back end, and I was going to encourage you, there's a lot of business 101 prep that should be done for businesses, even when they're really doing business. I've just found out that they're not doing business maybe at the next level to deal with larger contracts, prime contractors, bigger things. It's that like business 101 that you would be very surprised at, that some people are in, they're working every day, but they just got to get to that next level. So just to answer the question, the state is doing much better, and we've seen that in some of the businesses we have been working on the stadium project here in Buffalo. So it does work. They just have to be.
I just went through recertification. The state has done a lot, yeoman's effort, I think, within the last 2 years to really move the certification process along, and in fact has eclipsed timing better than New York City, which used to be the gold standard for a minute. And so the state has actually eclipsed that. So I don't think, what we would be doing is tapping into that trove of certified businesses that already exist. And there's a complete list throughout the state of folks that are in there that'll have these opportunities.
You probably also can refer people who are interested and maybe qualified but not certified to folks like Janice or other, I'll call it intermediaries, who can help access the certification process.
They get in the weeds with them, right? Getting to understand the process.
So that's actually a good segue, Liz, to speaking a little bit about the Prime Pathways program, a little bit about how we developed that, how we incorporated some of the best practices from successful MWB program, mentor protege MWB programs in terms of our thinking. And let me turn it over to Carrie to share some of that.
Hi, everyone. Are we going to share the slides I prepared, or
You're sharing them? Who's controlling Carrie's slides? Anybody?
They're with us. Yep, they're up here in Albany. Hang on, let us just get them ready to share screen.
Thank you.
Are you able to do or slide presentation so we can get more of the presentation?
Yep, hang on.
Slideshow.
File.
Maybe go to slideshow.
Yeah, you need to view slideshow.
Get the lights.
See slideshow at the top.
It's like a little.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it moved.
And from the beginning.
Always to the left.
We're not Luddites. We can detect things too, you know. Oh, there we go. Beautiful.
You could jump right into slides. Yeah, that's a perfect starting point. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me join you today. Robert provided a great background for what we are moving forward with doing in compliance for MWBE and small business participation at DASNY. Prime Pathways was really informed first by our legislative directives, feedback. I spent much time speaking with our DASNY awarded prime contractors and hearing about their experiences working with small businesses and MWBE's bidding on their projects. And they all fed back to us, concerns with bidding, scheduling, access to capital, to maintain labor on long-term projects, bonding capacity, and insurance. I also spent much time speaking with other industry stakeholders, such as banks that have small business products for capital access, CDFIs that work with small and marginalized businesses, surety companies, MWBEs themselves, ESD, and their programming in this space, and other authorities like SCA, MTA, and NYPA, also with DDC in New York City. These are all organizations that have long-standing, successful, formal mentor, protege, and business development programs. And after receiving all of that feedback, what we constantly heard is that there are two persistent obstacles, and that is capital and surety bonding, and that the key to accessing and reducing the cost of capital and surety bonding is establishing a successful track record of completed projects. And that's where I saw that DASNY is in this unique position to assist contractors with building that track record. Next slide, please. And so Prime Pathways is a program that stands up with 4 pillars. We needed a capacity building curriculum to what Janice was speaking about, that business 101, the technical back office support, financial, managerial skills necessary to compete at this level. Next was the mentor protege program, which would be for more established firms that are already bidding competitively on projects, either at DASNY or at other agencies, and that would give them an opportunity to meet one-on-one and speak more specifically about the challenges that they're having to grow. And then I put a star next to our ability through the pilot program legislation and our educational institutions legislation, where we can set aside projects that where only M's, W's, and smalls can bid on. We've had at DASNY this educational institution set aside for 4 CUNY campuses for 20 years. That's been in place since the 90s, and it's been a very successful runway for small businesses to grow in our portfolio of projects at DASNY. The pilot program allows us to expand upon that program and make it statewide, so we can identify appropriate projects across the state and move beyond the CUNY campuses on the 5 boroughs. And then finally, capital access and surety bonding. How can we appropriately assist in this space? I believe that's through providing resources and networking opportunities for our participants to meet the appropriate businesses that have products that are not exploitative. This is a huge concern amongst MWBEs, and something that we've spoken about with SCA, MTA, and NYPA, just ensuring that they're meeting the right institutions in the market that can support their goals. Next slide. This is a type of assessment that we are thinking to include in either RFPs when we identify the appropriate projects for set-asides and in applications. So I foresee there being 2 different groups of participants in our programming. There will be established firms and emerging firms. Established firms, you know, are those with revenue over $750,000 who are already successfully bidding on and completing projects within the public works space. But they are still having issues with the list of matters here: business management, scheduling, bidding, quality control, financial management, and just really getting back from them what are the challenges and barriers they're facing as they grow. And then more emerging firms that may have never done a public work before. Typically, their revenue is under $750,000. And I've went ahead and done an analysis of the New York State contracting system. In total, there are about 3,500 certified businesses that are in the construction businesses. We know that through their NACES codes, and they're split pretty much in half. So you have a bulk of approximately 17 to 1,800 firms that are emerging, that may not be quite ready or have never bid on a government work. And then you have a slightly smaller group, about 1,300 to 1,500 certified firms that I would call established, that have already bid on public work, have completed public work, and they're looking to grow in complexity and value of project that they're able to competitively bid on. Next slide.
Can I just ask you a question, Mike, going to the next slide? Of that sort of split,
Yes.
how much of our work, how much of our contracts in the construction space is below 750?
A majority of our opportunities, especially in our minor maintenance and our emergency work and through our JOCS programming, is under $250,000. So there are many small, low complexity opportunities to offer to this identified group that still needs intentional support. And while they're in this cohort, under our direction and guidance, we could measure that growth and appropriately identify those that are ready to move to a more complex.
It's like being able to get somebody from that small maintenance type contract to be able to like do that trade on a real construction job. That's always where we see that there's
Lisa,
plenty
a
of
point
firms
of
that are.
pride, we have identified contractors within our portfolio that started out 20 years ago on a JOCS contractor, doing simple abatement at a CUNY campus through our educational set-asides, who are now multi-million-dollar firms 20 years later
13
that are
they'll get kicked out.
working on our larger projects. So we've identified some of those firms, and we are currently working on creating success profiles to share with the public.
For inflation.
That's great. I mean, it's a huge challenge, and kudos for getting it there. And then I guess I would also ask about, over time as this sort of shakes out, the parity or disparity between upstate and downstate, because the downstate contracts tend to be bigger.
Absolutely. And also the availability of firms
There are no A trades in certain major packages.
And I think that's where we can support our large prime contractors in developing a pipeline of qualified small businesses that can support them meet the state goals, which we know can be a burden on some of the larger projects up north.
And down south.
Everywhere, yes. Next slide. And just so you can see, we've really thought, long about how we will measure success for the program. Not every contractor who goes through our program may actually get on a project, right? We're still moving our work forward through competitive bid, right? But what we'll be looking at is the number of bids from MWBEs and small business, the number of participants completing our programming, the average increase in bonding capacity, average project value per firm, the total value of contracts awarded to MWBEs, the increased ratio of bids submitted to contracts won. We have all of this data within DASNY and on our procurement team, but we haven't been looking at it regularly. We have generally looked at, what you see reported every year, participation percentage, but I've really disaggregated that information so we can see how many M's and W's and smalls are actually being awarded contracts and how are they participating on those contracts. And that's something that I look forward to reporting out to you all over the next 2 years. Next slide. I think we have one more. And, finally, this last slide is really, we are looking, we want to increase the number of MWBE primes that we have. When we disaggregate that participation percentage that we are proud of, the 30 to 35%, really looking at what number of firms are in the subcontractor level, which is where we do get the bulk of participation, and can we meaningfully increase the number of firms that are on the prime. In the 18 months that I have been here, we have awarded some very large contracts to minority and women-owned firms. We want to increase the breadth of firms, right? Introduce new firms to our ecosystem that may not have participated, but certainly have experience with our other authorities like the MTA and NYPA, but just did not know more about DASNY's works. And then always looking to exceed the 30% compliance goal. That's the floor, but we certainly can have a high ceiling to what we are striving to achieve here at DASNY. That is my final slide. If you have any other questions.
And just to kind of wrap it up, I think what makes this program a little bit different, than some of the other programs is some of our procurement options and our ability to be able to provide partnership agreements and bidding opportunities that are unique to this population, and really look across our entire portfolio for procurement opportunities that we can tailor specifically to the mentor proteges, and be able to provide greater weight in terms of submissions and awards that leads to actual work and projects, as well as making sure that we create incentives for those partnerships for mentors and proteges to bid on those jobs together
The
to
bonding,
develop
though,
that.
Rob, it remains, a challenge. It was a challenge back in 2009, which is why
And that's why
There's more
those
people using
marriages
CSIPs
happen.
and things like that, and if you're working under a prime, you've got your insurance covered, and then
Correct.
the prime is providing the bond
Correct. And
capacity.
And then that gives you the track record to be able to go eventually get higher jobs along the way.
I mean, the issue that we've seen with we don't use a lot of, we were on GC, so we don't use a lot of other GCs, but even on the A trades, it's very tough to find somebody who is capable of doing a $2 to $3 million job to package downstate. So, I think it's important, but I think a lot of people do these kinds of trainings, and a lot of MWBEs and even the mentors get sort of fed up because they're not seeing results. So I think, you're really smart to measure and then calibrate, where we need to get people through, because I think we don't want to just pay lip service. We want to actually, get it done. And it's tough work. I mean, a lot of
you
times
might need to be very focused rather than cast as wide net and try to get a couple across the finish line.
Correct.
Yeah. And I think it's also, I think you're 1,000% right to focus on building the capacity, because if somebody can do I don't know, $100,000 job, that doesn't mean they're going to get to $1 million job, in your years, I think you said it took them to get from point A to point B.
And it's an intentional process to make that growth, right? To make that step.
That's what we found too, is if you can start small and then build that relationship, it's more helpful. I mean, it's not to be underestimated, the amount of barely being able to put together a requisition or be able to provide financial statements. It's a real basics that people are operating on shoestrings. So.
Well, not to be overblown, I think this is a real milestone day for DASNY, because we're showing a leadership role in this space in New York State, but more broadly, the industry, construction, A&E industries especially, that are going to touch this kind of programs. In addition to hitting the objectives of the existing legislation, so we have to do this in many ways. The capacity building and reducing market disparity, meeting our state's goals, it's incredibly important. But for DASNY, the other benefit is going to be increased competition for firms that'll move into that prime position and bid directly to DASNY. So Jerry, you brought up the SCA's mentor program. Our firm has run the mentor program for the last 8 years, had over 600 firms come through the doors And it has really, the metrics there would just blow your mind in terms of the ability for people, by the way, in the last 8 years to survive and thrive under COVID, and then come out of it and be stronger firms that bid direct to in that instance, the School Construction Authority, and take on those prime opportunities. So I love the name, Prime Pathways. It says it all. And Al, this is the next cycle for DASNY. I remember meeting you at the DASNY MWBE conference at the Marriott on Wolf Road.
Aren't you kind? Thank you.
No. And here it is, we're turning a page in a tremendously exciting way. So I'm thrilled for this.
As am I.
Don't
And
lose
thank
sight of the
you.
professional piece of it as well.
Not at all.
Because that really is something where we
That's a
sort
little
of
bit low hanging
have been,
comparatively.
but many of the other agencies, I mean, I remember when it started, when Al was, chair, he really, I forget, I think it was Paul Williams was
That's a very good
but
point.
the professional piece was something that was sort of different than like your MBE has always been, but
It's interesting because my experience is like when we work with housing agencies, they're counting soft costs. You can't ever hit the goal with just soft costs just because of the, proportionality. But, that to me has evolved where people are looking at the architects, the surveyors, the controlled inspectors,
because it is the lower hanging fruit.
Yes.
it's often easier because you don't necessarily have to have the financial heft that a contractor has to have.
So that certainly has been the focus, and this gives us an opportunity to use a similar kind of model in terms of the way we do for certain professional services and pairing up large firms and small firms. It's almost taking some of that thinking and putting it directly into use in the construction space, but it doesn't change our focus. I think what's important here is this is kind of the next evolution of the construction related elements, but it's our overall objective, certainly, and has been shared in strategic plan conversations to see if we can exceed our current threshold level, right? All right, and in order for us to do that, that requires looking across the enterprise, looking at professional services, looking at our construction services, and certainly, those things that we procure. So, somewhere in Kim's report is also the investment side and what we're able to do in terms of the broker dealers and that participation there, separate from the bond issuances, but just in terms of the management of our funds and executing our trades and transactions. So we will continue to focus on that across the enterprise.
Thank you, Karen.
So
Exciting.
And President Rodriguez and certainly Steve Carell, I encourage you to stretch past that level of 750. I encourage you to go to the discretionary level that the state allows of $1.5 million, because to the point on other programs, unless the contractors have opportunities to bid, it won't be an effective program. So, definitely look to stretch and deepen those opportunities, not guarantees, right? Not guarantees of work, because you have to bid for the work, but the opportunities, that's the important piece.
And I would also encourage us to celebrate the wins. I think nothing creates the feeling, the sort of visibility of the success than sort of highlighting it.
And you're lucky to have a lot of experience on the board with Lisa, and
We are very lucky to have
Lucky
that.
/ sorry.
Well, I think it's certainly our expectation.
Janice's experiences,
Yeah.
Liz's experiences.
And I think it's all
mentorship.
something that we feel
And
pretty
it's all-
strongly
right.
about in
Yes.
the most supportive way possible.
Well, I think what's important and what we're excited about is, being able to show progress as we move along, hence the metrics conversation, and then bring the expectation to bring this back to the board annually and talk about our progress, as well as, how we're meeting our milestones. So.
Right. I think we'd like some more information as you roll out in terms of sort of, I think the request is to dissolve the MWBE surety fund, but then let's talk again about how you want to reuse or use that money.
Yes.
We need a resolution.
Yes.
We need a resolution to dissolve.
I'll be happy to make that.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Jerry. Anybody want a second? Thank you.
Second.
Fourth, fifth, great.
Third, fourth. All right. We have a great.
All board members. So that-
All board members will second and third and fourth that.
First.
So I think we're really super excited and
Do we-
please, I'm sorry, we need to actually vote.
Do we want to do the transfer as well? Otherwise, it's kind of in limbo.
Oh, it's in limbo if we do not approve the transfer. So we are transferring it to the reserve fund,
To the mentor protege reserve
the
fund,
mentor
and then
protege.
certainly we'll come back.
Okay,
So
so
we dissolve and then
so let me amend the request for a motion, which is to dissolve the MWBE Surety Capital Access Assistance Fund, move the money into the MWBE Mentor Protege Reserve Fund with a request for the team to come back to the board with further use of those proceeds before they are spent. Is that? Can we get the same level of enthusiasm?
It sounds right.
Yes. Okay. All right. So unless anybody has an objection, we'll take the former first, second, third, fourth, and fifth to that motion. Ask for a motion to, vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? No. Motion enthusiastically and unanimously carries. And then I guess we need also that's it, right? For your
That
motion.
concludes the president's report.
All right.
Activity.
All right. Thank you. And thank you, Carrie. We're super excited and we look forward to the next step. All right. Tab 6 is Portia Lee and the public finance report.
Chair, included in the members' materials are the standard public finance reports. Just to follow up briefly on Robert's comment about the PIT transaction, I just want to give a little bit more color, really focusing on, the notion that in this volatile market, we really went into the market in a very prudent fashion. When we put POS out for this deal, it was showing 2.5 billion because we were assuming the regular standard transaction. We were going to do the refunding of 2 series of BABs. Given the volatility in the market, when we actually went out to price the bonds retail on Monday, we went out with just 1.6 billion, which was the base deal without any of the BABs refundings. Recognizing that volatility in the market, we got about $1 billion in retail orders on Monday. We went institutionally on Tuesday. We had a good result. We had over 7. So we layered in 1 series of the BABs. As Robert had indicated, it was about $448 million that we were able to add into the deal. I think everybody's really pleased with that. But again, I think that the real takeaway here is that we entered the market very prudently and were able to upsize. Just in terms of a market update, total year-to-date issuance volume for 2026 is approximately 87.9 billion. That's down from last year's comparable volume of 96.2 billion. This week, primary issuance is anticipated to total about 13.3 billion. So we were obviously a big part of that calendar. Municipal bond flows saw inflows in the last week. On yesterday, AAA MMD yields were steady, with the 10-year remaining at 2.71 and the 30-year holding steady at 4.29. U.S. government bond yields were higher, with the 10-year Treasury increasing by 3 basis points to 4.15, and the 30-year increasing by 6 basis points to 4.78. Since the February 11th board meeting, the 1-year MMD has increased by 4 basis points, the 10-year increased by 14, and the 30-year decreased by 2. During that same time period, the 10-year Treasury yield decreased by 1 basis point, and the 30-year yield remained the same at 4.78%. I also wanted to just update the board on a number of rating actions. Albany Public Library was downgraded from AA1 to AA2 based on declining financial flexibility and operating deficits. Garnet Health, formerly Orange Regional Medical Center, was downgraded from BB- to B- based on their deteriorating days cash on hand, projected operating losses, draws on unrestricted reserves. The rating report did note, though, that there is a planned merger with Montefiore, which does offer the opportunity for more positive news on that front. The new school was downgraded from BBB+ to BBB. basically based on weakened operations and enrollment declines. Three other things I'd like to note, and this is really in the area of downgrade, not downgrades, but outlook changes. New York Institution of Technology, their Baa2 rating was affirmed, their outlook changed to negative, largely based on a decline in enrollment, in particular international students. Pratt Institute, their A2 rating was affirmed, outlook changed to negative. Again, thinning operating performance, reduction in international students. And lastly, the Pace University rating affirmed, Baa3, outlook changed to negative based on declining liquidity, reliance on a line of credit, and declining international enrollment. So just wanted to update the board on those rating actions. There are questions. That concludes my report.
I like the more positive report from Robert and Carrie.
I get that, but the spirit of, I guess, full disclosure.
No, I appreciate the transparency, and the bond sale transaction was the
That's
good
the
news and the highlight on
Well, on the bright side, they didn't downgrade.
right.
Just
It's
kidding.
coming. It's coming. All right. Any questions for Portia? Okay. Then I guess we'll go to Kim on the financial report, tab 7.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Behind tab 7 in your materials is a standing monthly financial report for activity through January. As highlighted in the report, personnel expenses continue to be ahead of projection, primarily due to increased salaries as a result of hiring efforts. Non-personnel expenses are under projection, primarily related to lower expenses for computer services and equipment, rent and utilities, office supplies and miscellaneous expense, training, and professional services. There were no private debt issuances closed for the month, so financing fees remain at 1.9 million year to date. The percentage of direct hours charged to public client programs increased slightly from last month to 95.8% and remains slightly over the budgeted amount of 94.4%. Also included in your materials is a quarterly investment report for the period ending December 31st, 2025. The overall portfolio increased by 1.2 billion, primarily due to new money bond issuances and receipt for debt service, offset by construction expenditures. Also highlighting the broker-dealer results on the last 2 pages of the report. For the quarter ending December 31st, MWBE participation were just under 38% or 1.1 billion in trades via phone solicitation went to an MWBE firm, with another 10% or 317 million going to SDVOBs. On the electronic trading side, we awarded 22% or 235 million to MWBEs and just under 18% or 187 million to SDVOBs. On the last page of the report, it shows cumulative results for the 9-month period ending December 31st, where just under 42% or 6.3 billion in trades via phone solicitation went to an MWBE firm, and another 8% or 1.2 billion went to SDVOBs. On the electronic trading side, we awarded just under 23% or 1.2 billion to MWBEs and just over 4% or 220 million to SDVOBs. Hearing no questions on that report, I do want to give the board an update on our Dynamics 365 implementation. My last update in January indicated that we were entering the final stages of the implementation, and I am happy to report that we are in the cutover stage, preparing for a 4/1 go live. The production environment has been established after getting the go-ahead from Microsoft itself. Staff are busy preparing the environment, populating with the core data tables, such as account structure, vendors, banks, etc. And in the coming weeks, we'll be preparing for the final transaction in our legacy system, with the last payment made on March 26. We anticipate being live on 4/1. Finally.
Exciting.
Yeah.
That's
exciting.
Anything else, Kim?
That concludes my report.
Anything from anybody? I guess I would like to ask, this is sort of a general question that probably goes beyond finance, but something I'm personally thinking about is, are we thinking about, frightened of agentic AI within any of our processes, particularly accounting and finance?
Speaking on the accounting side, we haven't implemented or looked at AI in particular. Obviously, during this implementation of the new financial system, there are certain components of OCR reading when invoices are submitted via email. That is a component of the implementation. We're still working through how that works. And again, obviously, as the OCR invoices are read, it still has human intervention to ensure that what has been populated is actually accurate. So we are aware that there may be other opportunities for AI, but we're just trying to get to going live with the new system first before.
No, I get that. I 1,000% get that, but internally, maybe throughout the company, big picture. And I know we have a robust IT team around the corner. They're all here. They're all out here, so I can figure if
I watched them this morning. Yeah, but I would say our current approach is following the state's guidance in terms of AI policy. We're definitely on the conservative side, less utilization, and we'll layer in potential uses across different functions and different business lines over time and based on specific approval processes. So we're definitely kind of in the more stringent incorporation and then trying to figure out where it.
But is there sort of like a, I don't know, a working group or we have like a, I mean, I think this is coming.
Yes.
I don't know.
How do you get that person? Like, you're gonna have someone who knows this shit.
No.
No, young people all like play around with it. Yes, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. I mean, I think like, I'm like, I don't have any answers, but I'm like, I can see like the sort of the business case and the enthusiasm for sort of the, not for the elimination of jobs, but for the having people focus less on rote tasks and more on high value activities. So I don't know what this actually is, and but I know I can see how fast it's evolving. So I just wanted to ask if and how we were thinking about it.
So part of our strategic planning talks about the creation of that working group, incorporating that with internal audit and technology. We have a chief information security officer evaluating that, risk assessments currently underway in terms of thinking about security generally, but then specifically on the AI front, looking at where that makes the most
Like
sense.
I think Claude is going to get incorporated into Copilot. So I don't know if y'all are piloting Copilot. We are. So I really don't know what this all means for the future of work, but I think it's coming and it's going to be embedded in operating systems. So making sure that we understand how to protect ourselves from it and use it until we're all working for it, I think is probably a thing.
Okay.
Claude and Copilot will have a child, do you think?
I don't know, maybe.
There's quite a lot of systems out there.
I don't know. I know this is beyond my.
You try to follow it. I do. I try to but it's very.
But I know it's coming, and I know it's like here, and I don't know what this means for us. But as we think we're rolling out a new system,
Yeah, it might be antiquated around.
Well, I mean, but the speed of change is really increasing. So just wanting to make sure we're.
So maybe we incorporate that into a future update.
Okay. All right. Okay, sorry. Didn't mean to
yes,
lay the future of work on your doorstep, Kim. All right, so Steve, construction report. Robots can't yet build buildings.
Not yet. Okay, since the last reporting period, we've added one project to our portfolio. It was at York College. It was valued at $15 million. 3 projects made their way onto our projects report, meaning they crossed the $5 million threshold. There were 2 for CUNY, one at Queens College and one at York College. and a third at NYPL. The total for those three was about 20 million. Expenditures through January of 24 were 25 were 739 million, and through January of 26, 1.01 billion. That was a gain of 271. We highlighted projects. Robert spoke of it. An existing playground was renovated associated with Hunter College. The project budget was 1.3 million. Construction start was March of 25, and it completed in November of 25. Just some program updates on SUNY. Our Binghamton design build residence hall project has advanced. We're deep into site work at this point and foundation work. That project is scheduled for a completion date of June 27, and at this time remains on schedule. Our Cortland project, that's the new build, design build residence hall project, is into design at this point. We received 30% design submission in February and are reviewing that. Substantial completion for that project is May of 28. As far as the summer work, another month or two, actually another 2 months, that'll be off and rolling for SUNY. We have about 18 summer projects scheduled to complete in 26. As far as CUNY goes, we met with the Vice Chancellor on March 5th, had a full agenda. The meeting went fairly well. I'll just pretend that didn't happen. New York State DOB approved CUNY's 25-26 spend plan in February, just last month. That'll free up a number of projects that were either underfunded or new projects that are advancing through CUNY's portfolio. DASNY was informed that the CUNY DASNY spend for fiscal year 25-26 is approaching 500 million. Final figures will come out at the end of this month. On the OMH side, we had OMH come in and deliver a training presentation to us on March 4th. They informed us of their administrative support services group, which is their facilities operations group. They spoke to us about their design standards, their capital budgeting process, and the DASNY managed programs. About 120 construction division staffers attended that. The Capital District Psych Center 500 vehicle parking garage project. Update on that. The precast concrete frame is now complete. We're working on site work, a bridge structure to the main campus building, and some finished work associated with the parking garage. Hudson Psychiatric Center, working on enclosing that. MEP roughing continues this time. Western New York Children's, we are continuing work on the existing facility. We are continuing to work on pricing for the addition and the remedies associated with that building. DOH Life Sciences Lab, things are moving along nicely. We're still on schedule. That's a January 2030 schedule completion date. We are continuing to bid and award packages associated with that project. Structural steel erections started early in March. I guess that was last week. So the steel frame is beginning to show its face. All in all, the project is moving along well and is on budget and on schedule this time. Just a few admin items. We have 23 open recruitments in the construction division, 45 open positions. 15 of those are student interns. So they will be arriving in mid to late May or early June. They'll be scattered across our construction sites, many of which are in New York City. Let's see. I'm going to just jump to my last item. We are going to be providing the board a new construction division report for a number of reasons. The old report is rather stale. The conversion to our new systems, PM Web and D365, really prohibit the ability to produce the current version of the report. So we have a new report that.
We should get rid of it. We support that, Steve.
Yeah, so this one actually has some color on it, which is a huge upgrade. All the existing information that was on the old report will be on this report. Like I said, it was necessary. The production of the old report was difficult. Producing this new report will be much more efficient. So what I'm going to do is I will email out a copy of this report to the board. I would appreciate any comments. I'll give you a deadline. And we're going to try to move this new format into the April board report format. So I would appreciate that. If you could take a quick look, let me know of any concerns, comments, we'll address those. But all the information that was in the old report will be in the new report. That completes my report.
Fantastic.
I just want to recognize Steve and his team's work on the CUNY front. Obviously, there's more work to do. The client has strong expectations for us in terms of our ability to deliver on them and increase our spend and their expenditures. But his team has done really great work in terms of moving the needle from just last year to this year, where we think we'll be north of $500 million with that trend continuing to grow. So I want to give recognition to his team for the work that they're doing. There's been a restructuring to be able to do that. It looks like it's more than taking ground. It's pushing us in the direction that we need to go. So we'll have more to talk about when the fiscal year ends and our official number is there, but I want to recognize all of their hard work.
How's your bidding pool?
Depends on what part of this you're talking about. New York City is, oh my gosh, I mean, we're getting on some GC type work, 25, 30 bids.
It's great.
Really hot down there. Not so much upstate, a little, much less upstate.
And there's work there too. Why do you think that is, Steve? You just look upstate. Why is it?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll say this, a lot of the names that we're seeing on bid lists for downstate are names that we don't recognize. I'm not sure if that means there's new organizations being formed or what, but there used to be a time when we would look at a bid list and know a majority of the bidders. Today, that is not the case. So there's new firms popping up. They can always be interesting for a lot of reasons, but I think the upstate market, consistently, we see the same names. They really want to come back and do more work for DASNY upstate. I don't know that I have the same observation for the downstate firms. So,
Well, market rate construction is slow downstate because nothing works, nothing is getting financed. So I'm not surprised to see that you see folks like, looking to keep their teams occupied and fed.
Feed the beast.
Mhm.
we also are rolling out a bunch of new delivery methods. So, I think that has attracted some firms to DASNY. It's no longer low bid, design bid build, where you're spending a lot of time putting those bids together. You're, coming up against a bunch of firms that may not be as experienced and you're going to lose to them. So I think, the design build, the CM build, the different delivery methods, I think, are helping for sure. And before I finish, you don't want to take any credit for creating this report unless you don't like it. I do like it. There were three folks who were really on the front lines of forcing this on me. And that was Katie Hoffman, Robin Martinez, and Nick Zarelli. They created the report. They showed it to me. We worked together to clean up a few things, but Again, if you like it, they are the drivers.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Action-packed report. Anything else from anybody? Fantastic. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Oh,
Thanks, Janice,
Nothing on a legal front, by the way?
today. So we will see everybody on tax day, April 15th. Beware the Ides of March in the meantime, and have a good day. Enjoy the sunshine.
You too. Thank you, Madam Chair.
later.